There ain't no party like a penguin party because a penguin party don't stop. Yeah. Penguin Party from 25th Century Games, a small little card game, but is it a party worth attending? Stick around after the break where I show you briefly how it plays at 2 players, and then I'll give you my thoughts on what type of party I think this is. This is the setup for a 2-player game of Penguin Party. You are going to deal each player 14 cards. The rest of the cards get set off to the side and won't be used for this round. Typically, you would deal out just all the cards evenly amongst all the players, but in 2-player, each player is going to only get 14 cards. You're also then going to put the point tokens off to the side. The last player to see a live penguin will go first, and they're going to play the first card. You are going to be building up a pyramid starting from the bottom layer, working your way up. In a 2-player game, this bottom layer is going to be 7 cards wide. In every other player count, it is 8 cards. So you're going to look at your hand of cards, and you're going to just play a card down into this bottom row. As being the first player, you can only play it in the bottom row. The next player is then going to look at their hand, and they're going to play a card to either the left or right of this card. So let's go ahead and put this card right there. So now we have 2 cards. This next player has multiple options. They can play a card here, they can play a card here, or they can play a card at the top if it matches one of the 2 colors below. So they could say play this red card here, or they could have played any colors there or there. And it'll go back to the next player, repeating this process. So they'll go there, and the next player can get rid of their only yellow card there. So now this card has to be red or yellow. Green is now blocked in here, so you need to have other green cards in order to extend green up at all. Players are going to be going back and forth, taking turns playing these cards until they are unable to play a card. If you're unable to play a card, so we'll say this player has 3 cards left and they're unable to play, they're then going to set those cards off to the side and they're going to take 3 penalty tokens. If, however, you are able to play your entire hand, you are able to get rid of 2 penalty tokens in front of you. Once a player is out, the other player continues playing until they are no longer able to play cards or run out of cards. If they're not able to play, they will again set the cards aside, taking penalty tokens appropriately. You then are going to shuffle up all the cards and play again. You're going to play a number of rounds equal to the number of players, with each player taking a chance of being the first player. So if this player went first in the first round, this player would go first in the second round. In a 2-player game, after that round, the game is over, and whoever has the least amount of negative points wins, which would then be the highest score, even though it's a negative number. That's how numbers work. All right, so let's go ahead and get into what I think of the gameplay. All right, so there is the basics on Penguin Party. Very small, very quick, very simple card game of building a pyramid based on colors and whatnot. So for us, we enjoy small card games. We enjoy simple card games that we can play while waiting for dinner, while out at a brewery or at a restaurant, or just out and about when we have time and any downtime and so forth. So does this fit that? It does. I will say this does have a bit of a bigger footprint than we typically like for those types of games. As you will be building the pyramid can get rather large. So this isn't going to have as small of a footprint as some other card games that are out there, but it's still not going to be this overwhelmingly huge area. As long as you have like a normal size table at like a restaurant or anywhere, you won't have an issue. So I will say we'd like to cover the 2-player aspect of this. So in order to cover the 2-player aspect of this, we did try it a few times at 3-player with the youth because we wanted to kind of get some kind of comparison, general knowledge with that. And what that led to is that in a 3-player game or more, well, I guess a 5-player game, it doesn't really have it either. But in a 3-player game, you are going to have perfect knowledge. All those cards are going to get dealt out. So when you know the color count of how many cards of each color are in the deck, that can possibly dictate the way you are going to do certain moves. In the one game, we were getting close to the top. I looked, I counted the cards, how many of these cards were out there. I knew what one of the people had, and I knew if I placed this card in a certain way, it was going to keep them having at least one of them keeping that card in their hand, so I was able to do it. Whereas with the 2-player game, each person gets 14 cards. There are 8 cards that aren't out there, so you do not have that perfect knowledge. You are not 100% sure what they have in their hand because you don't know what's not in the game. As I said, in a 5-player game, there is 1 card set off to the side. So again, not perfect knowledge, but pretty close to perfect knowledge. And I think that element there of not having that perfect knowledge does change the dynamic of that 2-player game. Because at that point, it's more you're trying to play your hand than your opponents. In a 3-player game, I felt like I was more playing my opponents because, like I said, I was trying to figure out, all right, what colors do they have? So I was able to count my hand, know what they have. So I knew, like, hey, I have 3 green cards. There's, I think, 4. I think it's like 7, 7, 7, 7, and then blue has 8. Could be off on those numbers. It's right around there. But like I knew, like, you know, if I had this many, then between the 2 of them, they have this many. So if I notice one's not really playing much of the green, then probably the other person has the green, etc. So like I said, it's that whole kind of change in strategy of when in 2-player, you're more focused on what colors do I have in my hand and how can I make sure I get those colors out, as opposed to in a 3-player, more so, how can I make sure I get these out while trying to stick them with more points? Also, the fact that you play 1 round per player, 2 players a bit quicker. You're only playing 2 rounds as opposed to 3. Which to me, I kind of maybe wanted it to go a little longer because playing only 2 rounds did feel a little, I don't know if anticlimactic's the word, but it's kind of, it felt over, but still wanting more, which I guess is a good thing for a game in general. It never felt satisfying enough after 2 hands, because it's like, all right, I won -5 to your -2 or something like that. The whole rule that when you can get rid of 2 by getting rid of your hand doesn't fully come into play in this one, in a 2-player one, because if you do it in the first round, well, you didn't get rid of anything. And then who knows, maybe in the second round, you get stuck with like 5 cards, so now you're at -5, and they won even though you got rid of everything in that first hand. So just to me, 2 rounds in a 2-player game doesn't feel enough to kind of mitigate stuff. I think in the future we may do 4 rounds, 2 rounds where each of us is the first player, and that way maybe we can kind of maybe mitigate some of those things and extend it out some. Because it says the game time is 30 minutes. In a 2-player game, 2 hands, I think we were done in like 10 to 12 minutes, maybe 15, but the most of that time was spent shuffling, preparing for the next hand. So like I said, I think that we would probably maybe play more rounds of it to kind of just extend it out some. But with that, all that being said, overall, I will say that I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. I think it's a really good game. It is going to go in our travel bag, although our travel bag's getting more like a suitcase lately with the amount of small games we've been adding to it. But this is definitely one that if we started culling those out, this would make the cut to fill that realm of the slightly bigger one, the one that has that slightly better table presence and that just looks more inviting on the table, that, hey, maybe some other people will join in, like, hey, what's with that cool penguin art? What's with that cool penguin game? And then we can bring them in. Whereas some of the other ones, if it's just a deck of cards, it's kind of more, it's just like, oh, look, they're just playing cards. But if they see this big penguin pyramid getting built, that's going to elicit some curiosity more than likely. So that was, as I said, Penguin Party. If this is something that interests you, there's a couple different places you can get it. You can hit the 25th Century website and hit their store there where you can purchase that and other great games such as Dracula vs. Van Helsing, which we've just recently covered on the channel. Or I'll include a link down below for all the other 25th Century games that we have covered. There has been quite a few and quite a few good ones. But you can find all those at their web store. If you're looking for 21st Century games and other games, a place that you can check out for that is Miniature Market. There's a link down below that is an affiliate link for us, that if you purchase games from Miniature Market, with that link, we do get a portion of that sales to help run the channel. Beyond that, if you want to go down and hit like, subscribe, share, ring the bell, maybe comment, let me know what your favorite 25th Century game is. That would be appreciated. And bringing it back around to other things you can do to help support the channel, you can join our Patreon, join this channel, or hit up our Ko-fi. With all that being said, go ahead and stack that penguin.